Guten Tag, meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren, and thank you to Andreas, Oliver, Giro and Daniel for the invitation to be with you. When I addressed you last year, we were beginning to look in hope towards the recovery from the pandemic. And I talked about how we should use that recovery to build a more sustainable future. Sadly, today everything is overshadowed by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Inflation is a reality. Interest rates are expected to increase. Financial markets and commodity markets are volatile. Yet the target of addressing climate change is now more urgent as we work to wean ourselves off Russian fossil fuel. Throughout the COVID pandemic and now the Russian invasion of Ukraine, our financial sector has remained resilient. And this is as a result of our work to reform the financial landscape over the past decade. We need to keep our financial sector stable, efficient and resilient to drive our economy forward, particularly as we move towards a net zero future. So today I want to talk to you about some of our work in the European Union and how that affects the real estate sector in Europe and indeed in Germany. Banks are a very vital part of our financial system, particularly for the real estate sector. During the global financial crisis, we learned of the risks that could be involved in the links between banks and real estate. Since then, we've done a lot of work to reform the regulation of the banking sector in Europe and internationally. And those reforms have been successful so far. But we do need to finish the job and, in particular, finalise the implementation of international agreements on banking regulation. Last October, the Commission proposed to implement the final elements of the Basel III international banking standards, completing the reform that we started over a decade ago. And this legislative package also contains measures to keep the prudential framework fit for purpose in terms of sustainability risks and supervision. The review will deliver a more robust, competitive and sustainable banking system, allowing EU banking sector to adapt to the new challenges and withstand future crises. It will stimulate growth, allowing banks to support the real economy even in severe downturns. And it strikes a delicate balance between three main political goals. First, of course, being faithful to the Basel standards, which is really important to show that the European Union meets its international obligations and that banks, EU banks, are solid enough to implement them. Second, taking into account the characteristics of the EU economy and financial system, using some of the flexibilities within the Basel Agreement. And third, mitigating the average capital impact. Real estate financing is one of the main areas covered by this banking review. Our proposal would provide for a better differentiation of the risks posed by different types of real estate, in particular commercial or residential. Second, the manner in which a loan is repaid, if it comes from income linked to the property or not. And third, the state of the property, if it is under construction or finalised. In addition, modifications made to the property that improve its energy efficiency would be considered to increase its value. These changes should make banks more resilient and the lending process safer. However, we noted that the impact on the capital of banks might be significant for certain national models of financing for residential property. And that's why the Commission proposed a risk-based transitional arrangement to phase in the requirements. We believe this goes a long way towards addressing concerns raised by some member states while limiting the deviation from the Basel standards. Concretely, it means banks can apply a preferential treatment to certain low-risk residential mortgages until 2032. That's another 10 years from now, allowing a lot of time to adjust. We want to avoid disruptions of residential mortgage lending that might be caused by a sudden increase in capital requirements. Residential real estate markets differ across our member states, so the decision on whether to use this transitional arrangement is left to the member state. And finally, we propose that banks should systemically identify, disclose and manage sustainability risks, these ESG risks, as part of risk management. Banks will have to make specific plans about how they manage the risks involved in the transition to a sustainable economy. And those plans will have to include clear targets to address risks identified in the medium to long term. Overall, we believe that this review will lead to a more resilient European banking sector and one that is ready for a more sustainable future. On process, discussions within the EU institutions are making good progress. And we hope that the Parliament and the Member States finalise their different positions in the second half of the year, and that we can conclude negotiations before the summer next year. We have a much broader agenda on sustainable finance that goes beyond the role of banks. You do know that the European Green Deal is our European plan to transition to a low-carbon and sustainable economy. We've set carbon neutrality by 2050. And this process, if you like, this transition, will not happen overnight, and it needs a lot of investment. To achieve the goals set by the Green Deal, the Commission has pledged to mobilise at least €1 trillion in sustainable investment over the next decade. We need all parts of our economy and financial system to take part in this transition, including the real estate sector. To succeed, financial institutions need massive amounts of data to help them identify sustainability risks and opportunities. The EU Sustainable Finance Agenda provides a set of tools for the financial sector to play its role in the transition. Since January, the EU taxonomy is applicable, and this provides companies with performance criteria at the level of economic activities. These criteria help companies to progressively increase their share of sustainable activities and to get the necessary financing for this increase. The taxonomy covers economic activities in sectors with the most potential to contribute to a sustainable economy. It contains sustainability criteria that are relevant for construction, for instance, criteria covering the renovation and construction of buildings and the production of construction materials. We're working on simple tools to help companies easily understand which taxonomy criteria are relevant for them. As a first step, we provide a taxonomy compass tool on our website. And if you are interested in the taxonomy and what it means for your business, I encourage you to take a look. Along with the taxonomy, the upcoming Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive will require large financial and non-financial companies to disclose information about their business strategy on sustainability. We also have the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation, which applies since March of last year. It aims to improve the flow of information on how private money is invested in relation to environmental, social and governance impacts and risks. I know that these many different pieces of legislation entail changes in existing practices, and the sequencing of different requirements can be challenging. But they are vital to reach the European Green Deal targets, and I would urge you to see sustainable finance as an opportunity. You can lead the way as we move towards a sustainable economy. Our buildings are a big source of emissions, so your participation is absolutely essential, especially because your sector also offers highly valuable solutions like renovation and energy efficiency. And our Sustainable Finance Agenda provides clear tools and labels that will help you show that you are leading the way, with the benefits that can be brought forward in terms of reputation and financing. So in closing, we do live in tempestuous and very uncertain times. And that should lead us to redouble our efforts to strengthen our economy and financial system, the very backbone of a strong Europe. Whether that's completing reforms to tackle issues identified in previous crises, or accelerating our work to become more sustainable in response to the climate crisis. So I congratulate you on the work already done, and indeed rely on your expertise and efforts in further reducing CO2 emissions to achieve our climate targets. I look forward to continuing to work with the real estate sector, especially with ZIA and its Brussels office, to build a stronger Europe together.